So we're going to do, I guess, kind of a very quick review of what we started talking about, and we just started our genetics unit. And in genetics, we're going to talk about inherited traits, acquired traits, learned behaviors, and then instincts is in there as well. I know that may not be right in here, but that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to get past some of these to the things where we started talking about things in class. Again, heredity, I think, is the first vocabulary. Yes, the first vocabulary word that we wrote down, and that's the passing on of traits, which is the physical features that you get, your hair color, eye color, skin color, height, ear shape, chin shape, all of those things you get from your parents. And now offspring, when we have that word offspring in our definitions, that is just a fancy word for kids. That is just a fancy word for kids. Traits. Traits is very important to understand because it does not just apply to people. Yes, Cora got hair color, eye shape, eye color, nose shape, height, attached or detached earlobes, all of those things from parents. Animals also inherit traits. If a hammerhead shark has babies, the babies are going to look like hammerhead sharks. They're going to have that head shape. They're going to have the same color that they have. They're going to be about the same size. It depends on which of the hammerhead sharks it is, but it's going to be about the same size. It's going to have the same shaped teeth. It's not going to have the physical features of other sharks. It's going to get those features from its parents. It's not just people and animals. And I know at the end of this, we're going to go over something that we need to take notes on, Hudson, and that is plants. Plants also get the same thing from their parents. We talked about sunflowers. Like if we plant sunflowers in class and they grow, we're not expecting something to come out with red petals and thorns. That would be a rose. We're talking about tall, long stem, green leaves, yellow flowers, and big seeds. All of those are features that get passed on from the plant to its offspring as well. So the traits are very important that we understand those. I can't watch a video on YouTube and then post it. That's definitely copyright. So if we need to come back and watch that, we can. Genes. Genes are the characteristics that tell you what kind of traits you will have. That's pretty much going to be about the most that you'll hear about that. But if you see that word, Olivia, inside of a question, I don't want you to be like, Mr. Mullins, I've never heard the word genes before. We kind of need to know what it means and understand it a little bit, but it's not something they're going to dig deep into. Chromosomes, nothing they're going to dig deep into. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46, but we're not going to get into that much. This we definitely will see a lot. This is going to show up in plants, it's going to show up in animals, and it's definitely going to show up in people. Dominant versus recessive genes. Dominant genes are always going to overpower recessive genes. Even if Colt has the green eye gene, it is not going to show up because he obviously has the brown eye gene, and brown eye is dominant. It's overpowering that green gene, if he even has that. Do any of your grandparents have green eyes? Okay, so that could have, the blue eye gene, you could have been passed on to you, but it's not showing up because you got the brown gene from somebody. So that's why those things show up. Same thing for plants and for animals. If they get that dominant gene, that's the only one that's going to show up. Recessive genes will show up. Those of us in here with blue eyes, we do not have a dominant color gene. We have a recessive gene, and I know that you have two of them. Anybody in here with blue eyes, you have two little B's because recessive genes only show up when you get two recessive genes. If a dominant gene is present, it is not going to show up. Let me pause this for the questions. Come back and watch that later. All right, this was just a list of inherited traits. Weston, do I expect you to memorize every one of those? No, but I do need you to understand that there are definitely things that are passed on from your parents to you. Now, listen, you probably need to know eye color, skin color, hair color, and height. Freckles shows up every now and then. Dimples, maybe. I put those weird words on here like attached and detached earlobes and widow's peak and stuff like that, because if that word shows up, I don't want you to be like, I don't know what any of that means. We're going to talk about that and go over it in the slide so that you can see it. But just in case they throw that in there, you're not like, I have no clue. But Aubrey, most of the questions that I see talk about height. They talk about skin color, hair color, eye color. Those other things could show up, but it's not necessarily going to be on there. I'm not going to watch that right now. All right, here we go. The first kind of weird one, and then I'll get your question. Attached versus detached earlobes. Now, I know that I'm looking. Everybody's all of a sudden grabbing your ears, trying to figure out what kind that you have. This comes from your parents. So we'll spend a minute talking about this. I'm going to answer that question, then we'll come back and keep taking notes. So when people are looking at each other's ears, and that's fine. And somebody said, because they saw it in the notes, what is a widow's peak? I think that actually might be the next slide. Do you see that little V shape? That is called a widow's peak. I don't really see that a whole lot from anybody in class. It's kind of rare that I see kids with a widow's peak. But that's what a widow's peak is that type of hair shape. All right, that's a widow's peak. This is a cleft chin. Now, this is a ludicrous example of a cleft chin. Looking around the room, I don't know that anybody in here does. I do have a 5th grader. I'm not going to tell you who they are until they give me an okay, although they did tell me that I could use their picture. So I may put their picture on here as well, because it's honestly one of the first. Now, it's definitely not like that. This is a ridiculous example. It's like overstated. But again, if you have that little indentation in your chin, that is another inherited trait. All right. We may actually have to stop and take notes on here, because I don't think, I'm looking at the notes, I don't think we really got to learned behaviors. Learned behaviors are very easy. Serenity, if anybody misses this question on the quiz Thursday, they haven't paid attention at all, because learned behaviors are behaviors that are learned. Pretty easy. I think of all the things that we have, I don't need to spend a whole lot of time on the learned behaviors. Learning the difference between, instinct, acquired, and inherited, yes, that does take a little bit of time. Learned behaviors is pretty easy. If you don't learn it, it's not a learned behavior. That one's pretty simple. All right. These are acquired traits. Now, acquired traits, Serenity, it does trip people up sometimes. I'm going to tell you the number one thing that trips people up. They'll put on there, which of the following is not inherited? And they'll say height, they'll say eye color, they'll say length of hair, they'll say skin color, and they'll say ear shape. And kids raise their hand. Mr. Bullens, every one of these is inherited. I'm like, man, one of those is not inherited. And the length of your hair is something that you acquire. I promise you, if Jackson chose to go from now to the end of the year without getting a haircut, his hair would be longer. And that would be a choice. We choose to have long hair. Now listen, I think tattoos and scars and things like that are pretty easy to know that that's you acquire it. You get it after birth. The length of your hair is the tricky one. That's the one that they trick people with the most, is length of hair, because you choose your hairstyle, how long your hair is. Can already tell we're probably not going to make it through everything. I'm going to definitely skip these. Although you can go back and watch kids use the test-taking strategies on here. All right, here we go. Instinct. Instinct is another definition that we need. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to copy exactly what's on here, but look in the background. Do those baby ducks, do they have to be taught how to swim? Do they learn that? They already know how to do it. When baby birds get booted out of the nest, they start flapping their wings and they instinctually know how to fly. It's something that is already inside of them. It is innate. Well, walking is a little bit learned because your parents are kind of like teaching you and guiding you and things like that. I think that might be a little bit of like one of those things where it's like a little bit of both. But like a bird somehow already knows how to build a nest. It doesn't have to be taught that. The baby bird grows up, the mama bird kicks it out of the nest, it knows how to fly, the baby bird grows up, and all of a sudden it knows how to build these intricate nests. It's just built in. Salmon swimming upstream. I mean, it's an instinct. I think if you're talking about like cartoon movies and stuff like that, I think that's more of like just to help the storytelling process. Now I have seen, and I don't know if we can watch it today, but I mean, I've seen those things where like the birds don't know what they're doing and the mom is like, kind of goes down and gets them and takes them back. And it's like, okay, you're not there yet. But I mean, again, we don't have to teach some of these things because it's instinctual. So I've only got 3 more minutes on the video because it's 15 minutes, but that's fine. We'll keep moving on. We'll come back and watch that later. All right. This is something new that I added, and I've noticed that there are a lot of questions. If you noticed on the body systems test, there was stuff about plants, right? Because it showed the plants going from cell to organism. Well, they love to add a lot of stuff about plants in here as well. So again, heredity is the passing down of traits from the parent to the offspring, and this happens as well in plants. Wait for some folks to stop talking. Think about this. The flower color, the flower position. Are the flowers positioned the same on a sunflower and a rose? No, they are not. The seed color, the seed shape, the pattern of the leaves are different in plants. Like we are going to plant some plants. We're going to look at the average height, the average color, shape, and everything, and we're going to track that. So because we can't have a rabbit in here that has babies and look at like the color and stuff. They're not gonna let me do that in the office. I can ask, but she's gonna tell me no. But we could definitely grow plants and look at how the genetics of the parent plant is passed on to the offspring. So again, have we already written down heredity? Yes. But we do need to know examples of things passed down. I know for a person, it's hair color, eye color, ear shape, nose shape, those types of things. You need to know for a plant, it's leaf shape, plant height, seed color, seed shape, the size of the plant are all very important. Look at this cactus, and we're going to talk about this. I'm going to pause. All right, now I'm looking at this slide, and it's very obvious to me, Lindley, that when I did this is back when we taught genetics after we taught ecosystems. Now, because of the pacing, we teach ecosystems before. Deciduous trees. We live in a deciduous forest. What is happening to lots of the trees outside? So again, with the deciduous tree, the things that are passed on from the parent to the offspring is the size of the tree, the shape of the tree, the leaf shape, the leaf color, the leaf position. And then the big thing for the deciduous thing is it also passes on that ability to go through all 4 seasons and still stay alive and to come back in the spring. We will pause this, smash the like button and subscribe.